Hello everyone, welcome again to another episode of Craftsman. Thank you for joining me today in this discussion and conversation. Today we're talking about trust, which makes it episode 7. And off from the start, I want to say that this is a complex topic. From all the research I've been doing, I thought I knew what trust was, in the basis of how I imply trust or cultivate trust or trust people or something. And the more I thought about it, the more I researched and read books and articles, I realized, okay, trust is in many layers, and that's what we want to talk about today. And there's two aspects I will focus on: trust and trustworthiness, and those, believe it or not, those two things are very, very different in as much as they overlap. Okay, so probably this podcast will have episode will have part 1, part 2, and possibly part 3. We'll see how it goes, because I've discovered it's not one thing that you can just discuss and boom, you know what trust is. It's in different layers, and it will need time to break down according to my opinion, according to what I have experienced. Again, it could be different for you. So let's get into the discussions. Again, as usual, follow us on IG, on Instagram, Crashed Cinnamon Podcast, and also we have a page on Facebook, which is Crashed Cinnamon Podcast. This podcast really, my podcast, I focus on relationships and how they're formed, what aspects contribute to relationships. And I don't mean just boy-girl relationships, I mean human relationships, be it office related, work, business, spouse, romantic kind of thing. So parents and their children, siblings, and that's because I'm just fascinated with relationships, because like it or not, we are in various relationships as a human being. And people say you can't multitask. You're already multitasking in life. You're already a mom, you're already a wife, probably you're already a director somewhere, you're already an employer, you're already a sibling. It's many layers to you. So that's what we're going to talk in. So what is trust? How do we define trust? What is trust? Okay, so I looked at different definitions, dictionary ones, people's opinions, and the three main ones that stood out was that trust is the belief in the reliability and the truth and the ability of someone or something. I'll repeat that again. Trust is the belief in the reliability, truth, and ability of something or someone. And the second definition of trust is the unquestioning belief that you have the confidence and reliance upon something or someone. Yeah. And the last one is the assured reliance on the character, ability, strength, or truth of someone or something. It all kind of is saying the same thing. There's hope, there's confidence there's truth, so means honesty and sincerity. Okay. There's many layers to trust, so I'll try to look at it because the bigger picture, as you remember from our first episode, is social capital, and trust is one of the elements in it. So depending on how you look at trust, there's those who think trust is cultivated, i.e. over time, you build a relationship with a person, it's cultivated that way, okay, through your relationship. The more you see each other, the more you talk, the more you do business together, the more you go on coffee dates, then trust is cultivated that way. Or for some, especially like institutions, when they want to inspire public trust, they cultivate it by, for example, like the police. I remember they created community police so that it's somebody. They selected people from their community they're trying to build trust with, so that they sound and look the same to encourage, what is it called, participation, encourage people not to fear authority, not to fear police. So it's a strategy, and it's a good strategy that works. It's a strategy that works in business as well. When you're trying to win over the other side, win their trust, you cultivate it. And how can you do that? You just study the person you wish they trust you, and you'll always pick out what they like, what they deem as being trustworthy, and it's not something that is freely given. You can't will trust. For those people who see trust as something being cultivated, I hope I'm making sense so far. So, and for others, it's it's something already there. You trust your mom, you trust your dad because they're your parents. They can never do you wrong. So it's almost as seen as like trust is instant, in that sense. So why not trust them? Okay. And then there's the other kind of trust, like fiduciary responsibility. Somebody who's been given a fiduciary responsibility over, for example, an estate, an asset. And fiduciary mainly here means, given the privilege to manage someone else's, the trustor, assets or desires and wishes, so that the third party, the beneficiary, will get exactly what the truster wanted, to be passed on. And that's why in law is very important, especially trust. Trust is very important. And I remember, because I did law, trust law was so dry for me, but it came to make sense later, especially where property is concerned, when entering into contracts of various kinds. And now I understand the long 2-hour lectures. Then I was young, some things, I don't know. Not everything in uni you read was quite exciting, but when you think about it now, it kind of makes sense. So the principle of fiduciary actually rests on two things: that you'll act in good faith and you'll act in the interests, of the person who created this trust. So really, it's a moral ground. It's very high, whereby you're required to act in the way that has been prescribed by the truster or the person who's entrusted you with whatever they need you to do on their behalf. And that's why abuse is very rife, and it's almost something that is, you can't really, how can I say it? People are trying to fight abuse of every kind: financial abuse, child abuse, abuse in the home. But it's very difficult, because once you've placed your trust in this person, you almost and they get into your head, and that's how this narcissist and all kind of things convince you that to trust them. Therefore, whatever they're doing to you, which is wrong, you don't see it as wrong. And lately we've been seeing reports of Catholic priests being tried and sentenced because they were in a fiduciary responsibility, taking care of the boys and girls that parents of the parish had entrusted them with, or doctors abusing their clients, their patients, especially like things like therapy, and getting tangled in romantic relationships there, where you're supposed to be impartial and you're the person who's treating the patient, so you're not supposed to be involved. So like I said, that's why trust is very complex, because when you trust somebody, you don't think they'll harm you. And that's why rape, why they've said in many reports and many articles, they say usually rape is done by somebody you already know. Yeah, you already trust them, so you don't sense the danger, you don't see it coming. And as opposed to if you're attacked by strangers and all that kind of thing, that is totally different. Here I'm saying when you're being abused sexually or by a relative, and it's because there was trust in the first place, because you believed you're safe around this uncle, this auntie, this brother, sister, cousin, this friend of your dad or your mom. So, and in a way, I understand why some parents never liked sleepovers. And I am starting to get it now, why some parents were very clever. They, not say the ones that allowed sleepovers were not, but I mean, they could sense things. They could see, actually, by having our children, even though this is our family friend or this is my brother, my sister, I wouldn't want my child to be exposed to that situation whereby he or she will come and tell me, auntie did this, uncle did this. Or even sometimes it's the children in that family they're going to sleep with that introduce them to very crazy things already, that the parents will have to deal with forever and ever, like a long time, trying to undo the damage that has been done simply because somebody went for a sleepover. So, and that's why I guess as parents, now that I'm a parent, it's a very hard place to be in, because you want your child to be well-rounded, to have social skills, to be able to decide for themselves what's right or wrong, but at the same time you have this responsibility to protect them. So in the sense of trustworthiness, what is we are talking about the worthiness of trust, and how one can look at it is if this person or thing is trustworthy, if this institution, you can trust it. And that's why I guess for some people who say trust is earned, comes from the school of thought of being cultivated, because you can't will someone to trust like a stranger, because there are some people who believe trust is an emotion. And there's room for that argument to see, because in the end it has all the elements like an emotion, because you have to, in order for the one who thinks it's an emotion, you have to see the cause. You have to be like, if somebody says please trust me, you're like, why would I trust you? I don't see a cause for me to trust you. And again, this is where sometimes people can mimic what you think is trust in order to gain your trust, to win you over and gain whatever they desired. Okay? And the people who think trust is important if there's commitment, because it shows commitment. Okay, and the duration of that commitment is what matters. It's what counts for them as trust, while for others it's not that important. It's actually what motivates that commitment. What's the origin of that motivation? Yeah. So for example, if it's a self-interest thing, it's if you want to someone to trust you because of it will do you good to your business, for example. Okay, and then there's that person who for example, there's the idea that it can be a virtue. Trustworthiness can be a virtue in the sense that you're morally disposed to be trustworthy. So does that mean if you're not trustworthy it's a vice? No, because you can't really say if you're not trustworthy it's evil. No, because there are some certain situations you have to not break the trust or betray. It's disappoint the trust in this sense. For example, if somebody wants you to withhold some truth, for example, you saw in your company somebody was trying to embezzle some funds or something, right? Something that was not going right. They want you to hide it, and they're like, they confide in you, and so you have to disappoint this kind of trust, because at the end of the day it's not the right thing. So there's that part. So, and in the sense of trustworthiness, there are people who are trustworthy depending on the relationship they have with that person. Okay, for example, for people who've had a jail sentence, they can be trustworthy where it relates to, let's say, their mom or their dad, but wouldn't be trusted in a job situation. Okay, so there's many things to unpack, and so I want us to think about when you say this person broke my trust or betrayed me, what exactly do you mean? Yeah, was it because and let's remember that sometimes they have to be there. Actually, in all times, for trust to grow, there has to be the right environment. If you're suspicious of each other, you can't trust each other. Okay, so were you suspicious of this person before? So you never even trusted them. So even when they didn't do what you expected them to do, really you are not trusting them, so they're not betraying your trust. Okay, there's that situation whereby if the person understands as trust as something to be cultivated, did you cultivate it? There's all those layers. So I want us to reflect on that, and then when we look next week at part 2, we can dive deeper into the risk of trusting, and in some sense about vulnerability. You have to be prepared to be betrayed. So we'll look at that in part 2. So like I said, there's lots to discuss, and we've just touched the surface. So thank you very much to all of you for listening in and sharing this podcast. Share with your friends and your family and in your networks, and continue giving that useful feedback. It's really good for growth, and also for us to do better as a podcast, but also as a person to grow. So thank you. Join us again in another episode of Cursed Cinnamon.